I have an LG mainboard from a 60PB5600. The customer sent it in because it's defective. Unfortunately, they didn't really give us any symptoms. So before we put it in the TV to live test it, we're going to do a couple checks under the microscope in ohms mode with our multimeter to see if we can find any shorts. The reason I want to start with resistance checks is because this board is well known for having a processor that shorts out. And one of the things we like to do to find shorts is simply by checking the capacitors around the chip to see if they are shorted, because those of course are not supposed to be. So in beep mode, when I have a short, we get a beep. Well, let's check out some of these caps. C445 is registering a short. This one over here is not. These larger ones are not. Smaller one here is. Same here. This one is not. And this one is. So we have several capacitors right now around the chip that are registering as shorted. So let's go ahead and remove it, and then we'll recheck those capacitors and see if the shorts are still there or if they are gone. And I'm currently preheating this whole board on a preheater. I have it currently set to about 300 Fahrenheit. I'm gonna add a little bit of flux on all of the pins here. I've been letting the board preheat for about 3 to 5 minutes or so, and I'm going to start with just adding a little bit of solder to some of these pins. And now I'm going to be using my hot air, and I had 300 Fahrenheit for the bottom heat. For the top heat, I'm using 350 Celsius. There we go. I'm just going to be removing some of the remaining solder with my desolder wick. I'm going to remove a little bit of the flux with some isopropyl alcohol. And I kind of messed up just a trace here, so I want to be careful. All right, so I bent this pin, and I want to make sure I bend it back before I damage it. Well, actually looking at it, it is a no connect, so it's not a big deal even if I did remove it completely off the board. So now let's go ahead and recheck some of our capacitors. So now that the chip has been removed in beep mode again, we're gonna go check and make sure these caps are no longer shorted. And C445 definitely was shorted, it no longer is. I believe we had checked this small one over here, but these 3 small ones, I believe 2 of the 3 were shorted, and right now it seems none of them are. This one, C474, definitely was shorted and it no longer is. And then C407 over here also was shorted and that no longer is. So now we're going to install a new chip on there, and once we have the new chip installed, we'll do one last check on those capacitors before we go ahead and live test it. I'm going to be putting some solder paste on our bottom pad. And if you don't know what solder paste is, essentially it's just a bunch of tiny little solder balls with flux. So this is what it looks like when we zoom all the way in, and it's a little bit easier to see that it's just a bunch of tiny little solder balls floating around in some flux. So it looks like we have our dot over here and the number 1 indicating pin 1. And on my IC chip, I have also a dot. Oh, Jesus. All right, we'll make it work. So we have a little dot right here, indicating that pin 1 is going to be this one right here. So that is how I know my orientation. And you want to be very careful with this because the pins are very sensitive and can bend easily. If that starts happening, it makes the soldering portion a lot harder. I'm going to start by soldering down a couple of the pins on each corner. And I think I have it lined up more or less the way I want it to. So if there's any adjustments that need to be made, right now is the time to do it before I start tacking down more of the pins. But I think I'm pretty happy with the alignment right now. Oh, I just shifted a little bit. I think we're still okay though. All right, I'm actually gonna add some flux everywhere here. Right. And now we're gonna hit it with some hot air. And what we're doing with the hot air right now is we're just trying to melt the solder that is the solder paste that we put at the center of the chip. I'm gonna let it cool off for a little bit. I am seeing a lot of the solder is molten everywhere. So if I start soldering the pins, the whole chip could move right now. All right, and it looks like the solder has solidified, so now we can go ahead and safely keep soldering. And I did put a lot of solder, so I have big blobs right now that'll have to remove a lot of the excess. So I've zoomed in a little bit more, and I also actually switched out my iron tip to something a little thinner, just for a little more precise work. And then we have this big blob at the end here. Let's use the desolder wick to get rid of some of it. And I actually do want to leave a little bit on, because if I remove too much too quickly, then I will actually have to add some back to the board. I'm just trying to consolidate the bridge over to the last couple pins. I'm having a little bit of a hard time. Oh, there we go. Okay, I think I got it all. I was definitely having a hard time with that last one though. All right, let's go ahead and clean up some of the excess flux on that side. All right, I think that looks good. Let's go ahead and move on to the next side here. And again, I think a lot of the flux here at this point has burnt off, so let's just add a little bit more. And this time around, I think I just removed a little too much solder. I'm gonna try and grab some from that blob here. All right, and hopefully I was able to bring enough solder over for those pins. All right, let's keep it moving on to the next side. Oh, actually there's a little blob here. I think all of those look good. And there we go, beautiful. So I'm just gonna do a full cleanup of the entire chip now. I'm gonna do my final inspection with the dental tool, and I'm gonna be raking the pins here. I do see a little movement here, for example, but I'm seeing that the trace is moving with it. And so I'm pushing a little bit back and forth on each one of these. Oh, these actually feel a lot more solid here on this side. Yeah, I'm putting a lot more pressure actually on that side. It feels a lot more solid. That second side is also good. This is the third side. We're actually gonna start from the right. Okay, all of those pins are also good. And for this last one, let's rotate the board. All right, and we don't have any loose pins. Now that we've confirmed all of the pins are properly connected, our final cap check, and no short still. That's good news. Like this one, no short. And that's good, no short, no short, no short. And I'm seeing about actually 300 ohms or so on the meter. Check this one, no short. And finally, C407, also no short. So after installing our replacement processor, we still have no shorts. That means we can go ahead and install this in the TV and do a final life check. So let's go ahead and plug it in. And I do already have my HDMI and DVD player hooked in. And I did hear it click on and off. Okay, let me try to power it back on. Come on. There we go, we have a panel prime. All right, and it's working. We have proper video. If you found the video helpful or useful, make sure to leave us a like and subscribe. If you find that I use too much flux in my videos, let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, thanks for watching.